Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the top 10 most nostalgic Ark teams, as we've almost hit 1 year straight of uploading content on our channel, and I felt as if this would be a perfect video, so let's get straight into it. In at number 10 we have got the Reaper Queen, and the reason why this is at the number 10 spot and not much further on in the list is because it kind of came a little bit late for that nostalgia phase for me in Ark, as I'm pretty sure it's a 2017 creature, and I know that is still a very long while ago in the grand scheme of Ark's life. It's lived for a lot longer than 2 years, 4 times that, but still, just compared to some of the other creatures on this list, it's one of those newer ones, and it loses out on some nostalgia points there. But when I think of this creature, I think of the first time that I tamed it, and the experience that I had, and the difficulty of taming one, and the accomplishment of when I actually finally fully tamed one of these things. And that pure elation is something which I've never really felt at the same level since when taming one of these things, and that's why they feel so nostalgic for me. I just remember that moment when finally that Reaper had been born, and then straight afterwards I just got killed because I didn't even have the pheromones, which is lovely. I didn't do a lot of research into the tame, but eventually I got it raised, and honestly that Reaper was just, is top tier, man. Just, that was so good. And now with the R Reaper on Gen 2, obviously it's quite a cheat to tame Reapers now. Really easy if you have Gen 2. It can literally be your first tame. You can check out Raasclark's tutorial if you want. But yes, that's why the Reaper is so nostalgic to me. Next up, we have got any type of Wyvern, probably more the Fire Wyvern because it's kind of the first one I think of, but I didn't have B-roll of that, so we've got the Lightning Wyvern for B-roll. But either way, when I think of this creature and when I think of Scorched Earth, I get a lot of nostalgia. Second map that ever came to Ark, unless the center is kind of mixed up in between all of that. Not really sure about the release of that map when it came out and all of that, but either way, still a very early map. And it was just such a new innovation and a new challenge which we'd never ever seen before in Ark. And I always loved that about like the older versions of Ark. Well, not older, well, it is an older version actually because it's been updated since, but the older days of Ark when just everything kind of felt like really cool, really fresh, really new, really inventive, really nostalgic. That's partly just because like we kind of get rid of all the bad bits in our mind and we just think of all the good times. But still, like, these creatures really do invoke a lot of nostalgia inside me, and obviously I still use them a lot to this day. Their turning circle was bad back in the day, still is now, but I still really love these creatures. They're just really cool to ride around on. The taming method is pretty inventive as well. They're kind of an absolute genius when it comes to like Ark and what the developers did to, and actually putting this thing in the game really did spice it up, and that is why it is so memorable for me. Next up, we got the Beelz. Don't ask why it's kind of this high on the list, but I remember when this creature first came out, the Castorius as well, but I remember this thing a lot more, and I just remember taming it and liking this creature so much, not for gathering cementing paste, and actually I kind of went off of it after like 2018 and onwards. Well, actually maybe even before that, like 2016, 2017 odd, when I started playing more maps like Arboration and Extinction. Then in 2018, or was it 2019, one of those, that's when Extinction happened. But either way, yeah, the Beelz is just such a strong memory for me. I remember it coming out, remember taming one the day it released, and then boom, you got one of these things, just like a hoppy, bouncy boy that you can ride around on. Again, didn't use it for any of that cementing paste gathering, just thought it was a really cool creature, which was a pretty good swimmer and was kind of goofy and funny, and that's what I remember it for more. Obviously, these days we remember it for all of its like cementing paste gathering. Still is actually quite heavily remembered for its swimming, which definitely does play a huge benefit to this creature. It is really great at swimming. It's pretty agile, pretty quick. So yeah, that is the Beelz. In at number 7, we have got the Thyla, and this creature, as far as I'm concerned, is a 2016 creature. It didn't come out with the release of Ark. Obviously, the Redwoods didn't even exist back then. Not sure about the full chronology of the Redwoods and this creature. Did they come out together or not? Either way, pretty confident that this is a 2016 Ark tame, and I just really liked this creature back in the day. Still really like it now, and it was kind of like a beast of the island when it came out. Pretty sure it's had some TLC since release. in terms of like the bleed ability. Not sure though. I'm not really sure of the chronology of when features were added for creatures and abilities and all of that. Again, I'm a bit lackluster when it comes to all of that stuff and dates back then, so I'm not too sure. It's all kind of muddled up, and then I've just got some highlight moments visioned in my mind. And I really like the Thyla for its nostalgia reasons, and maybe I wouldn't like it as much if not, because like the Shadowmane is objectively a much better creature. It kind of depends on the day though. Sometimes I'll be like, yeah, Thyla all the way, and sometimes I'll be like, yeah, Shadowmane all the way. So it does sway quite both ways for me. Obviously, I'm not going to put the Shadowmane as a nostalgic art creature. It does not have the age behind it to be capable of being on this list. I'm pretty sure none of these creatures are post-operation, at least when they're released. Obviously, they are going to be on maps post-operation, but you know what I mean. And you'll be able to see the bleed ability from this style in just a second, because I'm about to attack this Kentro. Again, can you actually comment below if you know, did the bleed ability come out when this thing was released, or did it receive some TLC afterwards? Just would like to know. Also, another thing which really makes this quite nostalgic and innovative for me is the innovation of travel that this thing did bring into the game. And it just felt like a new way to get around, and you didn't just need a Pteranodon for everything to get around, or an Arge. You could actually use this creature, and it was pretty decent at doing some land travel. Next up, we have got the Spino, and I always saw this creature as better than the Rex, and the Rex isn't even on this list for nostalgic teams, because I don't really get all too much nostalgia for it. And like, looking back, the Rex is just such an overly popular tame, and yes, maybe I do have a little bit of nostalgia for it. I don't think it is some of the most nostalgic art teams, whereas the Spino is for me. I remember this creature, and I remember thinking, it's like the most powerful creature in Ark. I'm pretty sure this was in the game when the game released. Pretty sure there was also a model change before this one. There has definitely been some TLC to this creature, as obviously as the hydration buff, and it can stand up, spin around 360, go up in its hind legs. Of course, that's what I mean by stand up. It's not really, it's kind of the same thing, but it's not just going to like go full human mode and stand up vertical like those old dinosaurs from the 1950s. No, it doesn't do that. Also, it's a great swimmer as well. And I'm pretty sure it either has oxygen now and didn't before, or it did have oxygen before and it doesn't now. One of those. Again, comment that down below, because I always get confused on which one it is. Again, just the Spino's characteristics really do make it nostalgic, and it was just back then, at least to me, seen as the bigger, more like beefier carnivore versus the Rex, and that made it more nostalgic for me and more memorable, as they seem to be a lot rarer. They definitely are rarer on the island, and it just seemed to be so much more of an achievement if you actually got this Spino over something like the Rex. It just seemed like you really went out for it. Obviously the Rex was a huge achievement as well, but the Spino just felt like something more, which really did make it quite memorable to me. And it's quite a memorable creature. Its name isn't all too complicated, which does actually play quite a huge part. But then sometimes the other way, if its name's really complicated, it can be really memorably complicated. And also, its general model design and shape is quite memorable too. In at number 5, we've got the Giga. And in my opinion, the Giga just had to make it onto this list. It's when it came out in 2016. Definitely not a 2015 creature. It was the biggest, most powerful art creature. And to many, we thought it was going to be the biggest, most powerful art creature ever. But if we ever knew that the Titanosaur would release, then we would be second guessing ourselves. But we didn't back then. This just felt like the biggest, beefiest creature, and all of its abilities like that rage meter was seen as really cool, as it was seen is far too powerful and you could hardly even keep it under control. Not sure if I had the bleed ability again, not really sure of the chronology of all of that. I really do want to know, so I am going to ask again. Comment that down below if you know about if these creatures did have the bleed ability back in the day, or if that was added at some point by the devs. Obviously the Giga does not have a bleed ability once tamed, but it does in the wild, which is, it's kind of sad that it loses it, but you know, it did kind of have to be heavily nerfed, like the tamed one, to really fit into the game, because for 2016 Ark, this thing was really, really OP, and it's still pretty powerful to this day, but like, it's lacking. It's quite outdated now, but I still got so much nostalgia. And if you ever watch Squid video taming the Giga, that gives me huge nostalgia. I would definitely urge you to go watch that video. In fact, I'll probably leave a card up here and you'll get what I'm talking about. Just pure Giga nostalgia. Next up, we have got the Pteranodon, and I think everyone kind of does remember their first flight in Ark, and my first flight was on a Pteranodon. Pretty much everyone's was, especially if you started playing Ark all the way back in 2015 when it released. The Pteranodon was just like the creature to go for. It was that flyer that was seen as a lot easier to tame than the Arge. I don't even know if I was even considering the Arge when taming this thing. Mainly due to that saddle level being so low, and it was such an achievement to craft that saddle even, because getting all of that chitin and keratin was an absolute slog. Always went for the carb enemies, should have definitely gone for the insects. I'm not also sure if the insects were even in the game back then. Pretty sure they were, like Titanamira and Meganera, I think have been in the game for absolutely ages. Again, I do actually want to know the chronology on that, because I can't really think, but there are definitely better sources of chitin than getting just loads of keratin from carb enemies and trikes, and possibly stegos. I might have taken a few out for the saddle, but then once you got into the air, like, you didn't even care about the low stamina or the low weight. You just was so happy to actually be up in the air with your brand new Pteranodon, or the Pteranodon that you just had for ages and you were spending ages crafting the saddle, because that happens as well. For me, I had that actually because I tamed a Pteranodon and then didn't realise the saddle level, and then I just kind of left it there, and then I was like, well, it's going to level up anyway. And then once I got the saddle, I took that thing for a little spin, and I again don't really recall being too miffed about that low weight or the low stamina. I was just so happy to be in the air, whereas nowadays I always do go for like really high level Pteranodons, even the first time I'm going around, because they can very easily be taken out by just a couple of tranks, and you can always use a bowler, and then they're not really that difficult to tame, they don't really take very long to tame, and then you actually get some somewhat decent stamina and weight. Next up, we have got the Arge, and this creature has to be here, and if it still had its new model to this day, then maybe it would be pushed even further up in the nostalgia list. But I think everyone kind of remembers the Arge, especially that old model. Never want it back, but gosh, that thing invokes so much nostalgia. It definitely deserves to be on the top 3 list for the most nostalgic tames in Ark, and I really, really love this creature. Still to this day, like, so many Ark players use this thing. Somewhat has been overtaken by the Rhino Ganatha nowadays. I know they're kind of in different leagues in terms of the level, but a lot of things you do with an Arge, people are just doing with a Rhino Ganatha, because I would still be using an Arge right the way through to the late game, whereas now people are just using the Rhino Ganatha. Makes sense. Ark does kind of progress like that. It is a stronger, more OP creature. Again, got no nostalgia for the Rhino Ganatha whatsoever. It's the most recent creature to Ark, as far as I'm concerned, at least at the time of recording this. Then you've got the Faslasuchus for Scorched Earth, and you've got that other one with the adventure pack thing and all of that. Also, I'm pretty sure the Arge did not have a portable smithy saddle when it was originally in the game. Not sure. Check the chronology of that and comment that down below too. Also, and I don't think they had the regen buff as well, which obviously they do now. I'm pretty sure these things had some TLC at some point when they got the model changed and all of that, so that's probably where all the features came in. But the Casteroides, as far as I'm concerned, did have that smithy saddle from launch, but this is a much older creature than the Casteroides, but I wonder if it did have that in the early days. Now, some people are probably going to disagree with me a bit on this creature, but I find the Megalodon hugely nostalgic. When I thought of the Ark Ocean, or just when I think of the Ark Ocean, I pretty much just think Megalodon, and that's it. And when I ride on a Megalodon, it reminds me of my first sea travel, because the Megalodon, first underwater creature I tamed, and it's such a different experience from even flying around and all of that. Kind of was a lot more exciting to me actually than flying around. Probably not the same for most Ark players, but I really liked exploring the water. It got a little bit more annoying as more creatures were added, and then the water kind of became more hostile. But those early memories of really enjoying deep sea travel really were great for me in search of like loot and all of that. I think there was some kind of loot crates in the ocean at the time. Not sure about the underwater caves as they were there yet, but either way I do just have loads of memories of just exploring the depths of the ocean back then, and that was all on a Megalodon, sorry. And also, again, don't think they had the bleed ability back in the day, but I will probably have to check the chronology on that. Either way, super nostalgic. Now, as a PvE Ark player from 2015, this is the most nostalgic creature for me. The Carno, I just have so many good memories with it. I tamed a Carno and spent ages getting up to the saddle level for it, which I think was like level 50, just bang on the dot, because engrams didn't go level by level. They went up by like 10s and 5s, possibly 3s, maybe some 2s in the early stages, but after a bit it was like, oh, you can unlock all of this at level 25, and then at level 30 you can unlock all of this, and then at level 50 you can unlock all of this. And I'm pretty sure the Carno saddle was at level 50. Such an achievement when you finally go up to that level. And when I finally first rode my Carno, which I'd had at that point for a good week or two, easily, if not more, it was just so fun to ride around on. And still to this day, I really enjoy using the Carno. When I'm playing SOTF on ASA, I still use the Carno, and I have allos and other creatures like that as well. But the Carno is just like, you just go for the Carno. It makes so much sense to me, and it's kind of built into my 2015 art brain to just go for the Carno. And I feel like people underappreciate these creatures. I get that there are some better creatures out there, and especially with the new taming methods in ASA, an allo is pretty much as easy to tame as a Carno, so it doesn't really make too much sense for the general newer art player. But I think the Carno just has some benefits. It's a smaller creature. They both steal the bleed ability, so you're not losing out on that. Obviously, these things don't have the pack buff like the allo, but I do like the smaller size, and it just kind of makes me feel a bit safer on one of these. Again, maybe there's not too many benefits to this over the allo, but for me, this is the most nostalgic art tame, and I will always come back to the Carno if ever I need just a general carnival to use for anything. The Carno is always there, and actually when I did Gen 1 for the first time, I was still using Carnos then, and I even used that for the Master Controller boss. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I really hope that you all enjoyed. As always, remember to comment on the chronology of all the stuff that I've told you to, and also comment down below what's the most nostalgic creature to you, and I will see you all later.